Hi, dear students and colleagues, very good morning. We've had a wonderful month of August with some really good speakers who've come and spoken to our students, starting with the editor of Indian Express, Raj Kamal Jha. Then we've had Amit Chaudhary. Then we've had an international journalist, Akanksha Saxena, who traveled from Istanbul. And now we have with us someone with a rather intriguing career. And when I was going through his profile, I had a few questions myself. But what intrigued me most was about Mr. Ganapathy Reddy, who will be speaking to you today on journalism in the time of alternative facts, is that his felicity in 7 languages. Which are the 7 languages, Mr. Reddy, that you know I'd like, and how did you pick that up? I mean, I'm envious of anyone who knows more than the languages that they speak. Yeah, I mean, I know English and I know my mother tongue Bengali and I know half Hindi. I claim I know Hindi. Actually, I don't know Hindi that well. Mr. Reddy is a practicing journalist and a media consultant based in Sweden. Now that intrigues me even more. I mean, Sweden. What is he doing in Sweden? And a guest faculty. He has a master's in geography. You'd be happy to know, Mr. Reddy, that we've introduced geography as a compulsory core course right from first semester in the journalism school, because we feel at JSJC that unless you know the lay of the land, you'll not be able to report. And many journalists, when they go to the field, they actually do not know the lay of the land, and something we feel. And also the fact that tomorrow's journalism is going to be about geography, about climate change. Tomorrow's wars are going to be water wars, and that's why it's important. And that's why it's interesting that you come with a training in geography from Delhi School of Economics. And that is when he became friends with your Vice Chancellor, Professor Raj Kumar. And he also studied international journalism from City University in London. And he started his career as a TV journalist, like Kovuuri and I, out here in the room, I suppose, both who cut our teeth in TV. He worked for ETV, worked for Aaj Tak and Headlines Today for CNN, IBN, and as a Delhi correspondent for The Hands India, amongst others. As a Sky New bursary winner, Reddy has gained experience in convergence journalism in early 2000. And there is a whole lot of things written in this bio which you may have read in the flyer, basically, that gives you a sense of the range of experience that Mr. Reddy has in terms of journalism, in journalism educator. As an author, he's also written he's the author of Handbook of Journalism and Media, India, Bharat, Hindustan. And there's another hat that he did wear as of a media consultant or officer on special duty of Kiran Kumar, the last Chief Minister of undivided Andhra Pradesh. He is a consultant also for the Telugu News website, and he comes with that huge perspective and experience within media, journalism, governance, and we'd like him to speak on journalism in the time of alternative facts. But before I invite Mr. Reddy onto the stage, I'll ask Raj to come and say a few words on his friend. Thank
you. Good morning to all of you. I'm so happy to see all of you in this sort of new academic year. I'm probably seeing you for the first time. Before I formally welcome Ganapathy, I also want to take a moment to recognize the presence of our Dean, Tom Goldstein. As some of you know, Tom had gone through a procedure and he's back in action, so very good to see him as well. Tom, as you know, is a resilient man, and despite his, the procedure, he has recovered quite well. Against my own advice for him to stay a little more in the hospital, he decided to return back to campus, and he's now obviously fully in action. So thank you, Tom, for being here. What can I say? I mean, Ganapathy obviously is a best friend of mine. But what I want to really say is that we both, I mean, I met him, I was a law student. He was in Delhi School of Economics. But one of the things which struck me most, and that's something which I can share with all of you, is that unlike most of us in this room, and including myself, Ganpati is coming from one of the most remotest part of India, but also a village called Lakiredipalli in Andhra Pradesh. And he pretty much grew up there. And till he came to Delhi, he really did not have a strong imagination for English language. And so I met him, like people typically meet in Delhi University, most come from different backgrounds, but he was somebody who was literally learning English at that time. And one of the things I noticed, it struck me so much, so I met him in the year 1994. And so every day, and this is something good for the students, so in 1994, I am meeting him for the first time. Every day, he used to have, he used to always have this dictionary, English dictionary. And he used to pick up new words and make it a point to learn 5 new words every day. So for the last 25 years, the man is learning 5 new words every year. And very systematically noting that and pretty much learning it and using it in his sort of writings and communication. And I've never seen people doing it that way because, and one of the reasons he had to do it that way is, he didn't go through the kind of English medium education that many of us had. So for him, his introduction to English language, he learned English, but it was not part of a school's sort of broader curriculum and imagination, and also definitely not the kind of schools that he would have gone. So in a way, I was fascinated by the fact that he built his vocabulary by simply, meticulously, painstakingly learning words. And he will, and of course for many of us who had gone to, let's say, urban schools and have ended up using language in a much more fluent manner, we would try to understand some of the words that he was using in a very sort of, casual manner. And this habit, this discipline, ended up becoming deeply embedded part of his, life. And of course, while he was doing different things, some of the things that was not reflected in the bio probably is he has written a couple of books, all fiction, but more for his own passion. He writes poetry and so many other things which are not part of his sort of journalistic life in many ways. So I'm very happy that he has accepted our invitation to be here. There is a thing about him which is quite extraordinary, that coming from such rural background, then he comes to, he worked in Hyderabad and then Delhi, and then goes to London, and then is now living in Sweden and traveling across Europe and doing freelancing. It's a very unique type of life which he has led, but most importantly, all I can say is that all through that journey, he has worked hard, and it doesn't come easy for him. And that's another important lesson that all of us can learn, particularly the students, because I see you and I a part of that privileged schooling and education that we've received. And the starting points from where we reach out to do things is very different from people like Ganpati, whose own sort of background, school background in particular, and then the college background, all of that, you need to work harder. And that's exactly what he did. And I'm so happy that he's around. So I just want to say that it's wonderful to have him. He has been to this campus many, many times. He's been part of my journey all through the journey that we undertook. In the earliest, he was one of those few persons I discussed about the idea of this university long before I knew the existence of Mr. Jindal. So a lot of what has happened here, he has been part of. But this is probably the first time he's actually here to give a talk. And that, of course, the journalism school quite appropriately has brought him here. So thank you for, spending your time to have Ganpati over. So with that, I would like to invite Ganpati Reddy to begin the speech.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, boys and girls. Thank you for having me here. Is it working? Thank you for inviting me, and I am inspired to be here. Of course, apart from being friend of Raj, I like to share my knowledge with the student journalists. I'm constantly curious what the student journalists are going to do next year. Because if you look critically at journalism, you don't have to study journalism to be a journalist. This is the only profession where anyone can be a journalist. The late editor Vinod Mehta, he was not at all a trained professional journalist, but he became one of the most successful journalists. How is it possible? So what I want to emphasize here is you have a very challenging time ahead. So that's why I have come here to remind you that and also share some of my thoughts with you. So I am given a topic called Journalism in the Time of Alternative Facts. So Professor Tom asked me, what would you like to talk about? Then I told him, I would like to be honest. I think it's not fair for me to talk about a topic or discuss about a subject that I am comfortable with. I like to talk about things that I don't know. So then this topic also, by doing elementary research, I have learned something, and I thought I will also connect some practical aspects of it so that it will be beneficial or useful to you. So I'm going to discuss very briefly about journalism in the time of alternative facts. So the very topic facts is great. If you are a journalist, you have to talk about facts. You have to report about facts. Whatever you write is going to come out of facts. Then what is this bloody alternative facts? I don't know. We know alternative lifestyle, alternative therapy, alternative livelihoods. Then in journalism, what is alternative facts? So let's have a look at it. Okay, before going into alternative facts, I would like to remind you about where we are in journalism. Journalism in 21st century. So we have many mediums: print, radio, magazine, television, online. So journalism and journalists have the privilege to work in the above platforms. Like, you can work as a print journalist, radio or magazine or whatever, whichever the platform you may choose. And we also have social media. So nowadays, it won't be surprising for you to come across someone having the title Twitter reporter, Facebook correspondent, Instagram reporter. All this is the new trend. Like, for example, 5 years ago, I met a Twitter reporter from AFP. I was quite surprised. How can there be a dedicated reporter covering Twitter? So you sit in the office, and what is interesting is Twitter is the source of news. By that way, I want to remind you, you don't have to wait now to become a journalist. If you start to follow some news makers, you can start to write stories. That's the advantage. So, and we have social media: Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram, SoundCloud, and many more are going to come, and many more are going to die as quickly as possible. That's the reality. And we have citizen journalism. Who is practicing citizen journalism? Idlers who has nothing else to do? Why do they have to write when we have professional journalists? Like, you are going to be a journalist. It's your job to write and report about something happening in the world. What is the job of citizen journalist? Why is he or she entering here? But many more are going to come from there. And there are idlers because they don't have anything else to do. And people in positions of power or authority or privilege writing for one or the other reason. We don't know. People make a statement. So what I want to say is they are doing the job of journalists. This is what my concern is. And I want to share that concern with you. If others are doing your job, then what are you going to do? How are you going to be different from them? What is that unique skill that you are going to learn during these 3 years here? So you have to distinguish yourself as a professional journalist. That you can do by learning the skills, by learning the craft. So that's why please be careful during your stay here and use your time very carefully, and you have a fantastic faculty. Okay, then finally, the era of everyone is a journalist, either directly or indirectly, has unraveled. So 5 years ago, 10 years ago, it's really an honor, if something appears in a newspaper or a television. Now, no one needs to be a reporter or broadcast anything. So if you want to say anything, you go and put it on Facebook, or you can tweet. And the interesting thing is, we have whistleblowers. So people who wants to share some confidential information, previously they used to share it with a journalist. Now they can put it on internet, either anonymously or by revealing themselves. And you have YouTubers. You don't have to be a broadcast journalist. You can start to make your presence on YouTube without a qualification. Perhaps you may notice there are millions of people who are broadcasting every day, every second. So you as a professional journalist don't have to wait. You can start to broadcast in a professional way. Why I'm saying all these things is so that you'll be aware of how competitive the journalism has become now as a result of internet or digital media or social media. Okay, journalism, it's all about facts. Unless you talk to your source or you get some information from someone or something, you can't write a story. So it's all about facts. That's a fact. News stories, commentary, debates, and discussions, opinions are all based on facts, unless you are writing fiction. But we are not going to discuss about fiction here because we are not in creative writing course to write a novel or a series or a drama or anything. We are just focusing on facts. Another thing in journalism we learn is, whenever you write something based on facts, it has to be objective. Objectivity is the defining principle of journalism, in my opinion. You don't bring in the subjective aspect of it. Balance. So when you write a story, you have to balance it. So what it means is, if someone is accusing me of something, so a journalist has a duty to also to talk to me, so that he or she will get two ideas, two perspectives, two opinions. We have to balance the story. Facts. Facts usually come from authoritative sources like government, opposition parties, witness, field reports, among many others. Like, for example, as a journalist, you can go and be in the scene of action, and that enables you to get a story. And journalists are always in the shadow of power, privy to information, access to sources unlike citizen journalists or content generators on social media or propagandists. So now, there are citizen journalists. That there are people who are every day writing about someone or something. So how can you distinguish yourself? So you can do that. As a journalist, you are going to get access to information. So you are going to learn how to get access to information, that is sources. And when you get access to information, that is something, a quality which you can nurture. And this privilege, I would say, because to access information is not given to everybody unless you are a journalist. So this is what distinguishes you from citizen journalism. And be aware of propagandists, and there are paid unpaid political or character assassinators. So many people are there just constantly trying to mislead you. Journalism, fourth estate. Okay, guys, journalism is really going through the best of the times and the worst of the times. The best of the times because you don't have to get something published somewhere. You don't have something to be broadcast somewhere because right now you have all the platforms at your disposal to do it. Yeah? And journalism is unlike other professions. Why I emphasize this is you're not selling a soap. You are not selling a shampoo. You are trying to give information to an audience that helps them to make an informed decision. So, in this process, whether you want to give a piece of information that will help you as a citizen or that will help you as one of the individuals of the world who can make a better choices in life, either for good or for bad, it's up to them. But what I want to say is, you as a journalist has some responsibility. That's why you are here. You are slightly different from other corporate guys because you have the responsibility, the duty, the obligation to safeguard democratic institutions. Unless you are living in a communist country or in Russia, I don't know. So that's why journalism has an element of sacredness to it. You have this obligation, either directly or indirectly. Journalism and journalists, they cater to the mind of the public, nurturing and nourishing the minds of the country and the world. So you guys are there, you are going to be in the field very soon. Please bear this in mind. And sorry for the spelling mistakes. I use my Swedish laptop, so it has Swedish characters. I get confused. And thanks, Krishna, for saying that. I'm learning my seventh language. It is Swedish. It is the most useless language in the world to learn. But I am forced to learn it. I have no choice, because if I want to succeed there as a journalist, I have to learn it. So anyway, apologies for the spelling mistakes. Journalism is unlike other businesses, not creating a product like a soap or shampoo. So please bear that in mind. Factual stories and fake news. News always comes from facts. And what is alternative facts? I get confused, but we'll come to that. Falsehoods, public relations. Okay, so why is this? Who coined this phrase, or who used this phrase, alternative facts, for the first time? So I learned something by doing some research. So it all stems from Donald Trump's inaugural ceremony in January 2017. Yeah. So, alternative facts. During Trump's inaugural ceremony, the debate was how many people attended the inaugural ceremony. Is it 100,000, 200,000, or 500,000? So who can give you the correct figure? Or let's say if the president's press secretary says 500,000 people has attended it, do you believe it? Or do you have to believe it? If you don't believe it, how can you cross-check it? So right now, I'm going to point out an important political development in the country. So you can test these alternative facts on 2nd September. On 2nd September, the Chief Minister K. Chandrasekhar Rao in Telangana, he's organizing a big rally. So he says 25 lakh people will come. So if that happens, it will be the largest political gathering in the world. So even if 1 million people comes, still what is press office is going to say? I don't know. So now you can check this news development as it is unraveling every day from now on and check for yourself. what is a fact, what is an alternative fact. Okay, guys? Does it make sense? You don't have to wait to be told or anything. You can start to monitor and feel how things are happening right in front of your eyes. Another thing, crowd numbers. How can you calculate the number of people who come to attend a rally? So it's a constant challenge whenever you go to attend a political rally or a meeting. How can you say 100,000 people have come? How can you say 50,000 people have come? It's really hard, but you can make a good guess by vaguely calculating the number of the people by having marks in the space. Hey, there are 100 people, like that you can calculate, but it takes a lot of time and you can go wrong. Other thing is, you can calculate it by asking someone. The issue here is, how can you measure the number of people who have attended? Assuming 500,000 people have attended Donald Trump's inaugural speech, how can you verify that information? How is it measurable? How is it quantifiable? So this is where alternative facts issue has come up. And it is going to come in the coming days because we are going for elections next year. The Prime Minister is going to say, I'm going to talk to 1 million people, or Rahul Gandhi will say, I have addressed 500,000 people. This issue of numbers attending a rally. So this phrase, alternative facts, in the context of Donald Trump's inaugural speech means spreading falsehoods or lies, not a fact. Otherwise, alternative, the word alternative means not this one, the other one. It could be additional. Like, for example, if you read today's newspaper, there's a gentleman who has written something in the editorial page of The Hindu. So I was quite curious, who is this gentleman? So I'll read it out to you. Shiv Vishwanathan is an academic associated with compost heap. My God, we heard about garbage heaps, but not compost. Okay, compost heap. He talks about alternative ideas and alternative imagination. So what is alternative idea and what is an alternative imagination? And what is an alternative fact? So do they have the same positive meaning to it, or does it have a negative meaning to it? Alternative ideas means some other ideas that might be more fertile, or more interesting, more amusing, or I don't know. But something positive. Not this idea, that idea. But in the case of alternative facts means lies. You got it, guys? So this is a misleading phrase or which we have to be aware of. Alternative facts, are they falsehoods or lies, or untruths or lies? Alternative facts are like alternative therapy. Alternative facts are alternative information or additional information. Alternative facts are lies and falsehoods in this context. So in democracy, again, coming back, facts are all based in the democratic countries, on freedom of speech and expression. These are all important because how can you gather information? Do you really believe the facts given by the government agencies? In the case of alternative facts, the phrase which has come from Donald Trump's inaugural speech, they were defending 500,000 people have come. But while the media was not agreeing to it, but the press office was constantly bombarding, no, it's a fact, and comparing with the statistics, with the images, all those things with the PR machinery will do. Now what I want to remind you is, how do you overcome alternative facts? When you become a journalist, are you going to believe if someone says something? So the only way, to my knowledge, is cross-checking. If someone says, oh, I addressed a gathering of 250 people today, okay, I can say that, but how can you cross-check it? Cross-check whatever the information you get and gather as much information as possible. What I mean by that is talk to a lot of people so that you will get a lot of information, and then you can write a report that is more important or relevant. And finding reliable sources. I think you have great journalists here who are teaching you, so they know about sources or reliable sources. Get in touch with them, so that these sources will help you to overcome alternative facts, overcome falsehoods, overcoming lies. Because as a journalist, you will come across a lot of liars in the industry. Because the politicians constantly also try to fool you, meaning to fool the audience or to fool the voters. So this is about the origin of the phrase, alternative facts. I think you may know about it, or the PowerPoint will be shared with you. You can read it. Alternative facts, political rallies. Coming back, guys, in alternative facts all revolves around whenever people gather. And India is a country where a lot of rallies happen all the time, and more rallies are going to happen in the coming months. Digital India, demonetization, black money. Okay, why I mentioned these three things is, when the Prime Minister of India says that, India has changed, it has become a digital India now, sab kuch badal gaya, abhi sab internet mein kaam kar rahe hain. Okay, great. Is it really a reality? Do you expect a 65-year-old peasant living in the remotest part of the country to use a mobile phone when he or she doesn't know how to write or how to read? Demonetization. Did it really help people? But what does the Prime Minister say? What does the government say? And the black money. We have been told constantly since 2014 till now, and we are going to be told in the coming years that we will bring back the black money and we will deposit 15 lakh rupees in everyone's account in India. It all looks very interesting. So these are all the alternative facts. They are the lies. Or I don't know. You have to check it. Okay, coming back, example, TRS in Telangana. So why I want to mention this is, I want you guys to follow this news development so that you will know for yourself what are the facts, what are the alternative facts. I can't find anything better than this. And that rally is really significant. Imagine the Chief Minister is telling 25 lakh people will gather. How is it possible? So you can monitor. Dissemination of information, public sphere. Public sphere means, as you know, guys, I don't have to tell about that. So your job as a journalist is to disseminate information. So you are going to get information from political parties. It could be left, right, center, left of the center. And one of the things that worries the world, like anywhere in the world, in India, is fundamentalism. And it is religious fundamentalism. And we also have other issues that could worry a country: patriotism, nationalism, jingoism, parochialism. These are all the things that constantly worry us. And information that you have to disseminate given by the governments, businesses, corporates, multinational companies. You are going to have a lot of information. So how you are going to filter it out and inform the public that's the challenge. Sources. How you are going to distinguish yourself from citizen journalists or those who are writing from non-journalistic background is by cultivating sources. So public sphere establishment, they constantly bombard you with a lot of information. So do not believe it, try to cross-check it. Vinod Mehta, why I'm mentioning this is, he's one of the eminent editors of India. Sources are so important because you could go wrong. Vinod Mehta lost his job as the editor of a newspaper in Bombay. I am not able to recollect the newspaper. But what he wrote was that A.R. Antule, the former chief minister, was the person who was leaking the information to the US government at that time. So, but A.R. Antule filed a case and he lost his job. And Vinod Mehta was wrong because he revealed it. Who was that person who revealed information to the USA? It was Morarji Desai. He lost his job because his source was incorrect. So important. Okay, coming back to Julian Assange. Very interesting man. He did a job which no journalist in the world could do. And by the way, he's not a journalist. Things are changing so fast. So he founded a website called WikiLeaks, and he started to share the information that the governments all over the world, especially the USA, doesn't want to reveal it to the people. So in a way, he was a successful investigative journalist without any journalistic background. Facts. Irrefutable facts. There are some facts which are irrefutable, like, for example, what is the outcome of the general elections in 2014? We know that the BJP, led by Narendra Modi, has won the largest number of seats he could form the government, which is a fact. We can't refute it. And then there might be a lot of refutable facts, like how successful his government is. How can you verify it? So it's something which we as journalists have to explore or measure. Cross-check your information, verify them. The issue now is measuring and quantifying them, like Digital India. How deeply Digital India has penetrated. Perspective. So what is a perspective? So because we all have diverse backgrounds, socio-economic or political, so your perspective should be very balanced, not judgmental. Every story has a 360 degrees, so you may see only a part of it. So be careful when you write or when you want to do some research. So this is a research article written by an academic on alternative facts. So I just want to bring it to your attention. Okay, guys, right now I am associated with, I'm a practicing journalist. I like to be a journalist, and I like to do reporting now and then. So right now I am associated, I am based in Sweden. So I don't want to be there, but I have to be there for personal reasons. So if you go to Sweden, I don't know who will go to Sweden except if you want to receive the Nobel Prize. And I haven't got any Nobel Prize, but I have to be there. So I'm there in Sweden. So what I do for my livelihood? So I thought, I can't work in doing a job that I don't like. Though the good thing in Sweden is, whatever the job you do, you can have a decent livelihood. Whatever the job. So there is no big difference between high-income group and low-income group. So even if I work in a McDonald's or even if I sweep the streets, I can still drink 5 times a week and travel once a year to anywhere in the world. But I don't want to do all those things because I'm a journalist, and I like my profession. So I started a hyperactive local news website called Gothenburg-400.com. And this is possible for one reason, because I constantly learn. I constantly learn everything that is coming up, and it's very difficult. At the same time, it's very thrilling and challenging to learn something. So for this website, I produce news items in multimedia format. So what I mean in multimedia format means, the ability to present a story in text, the ability to broadcast a story in video form, the ability to produce a story in a podcast, or through just photographs. Gone are the days that if you can write well, oh God, I can write. Nowadays, the industry or the newspapers, television, they demand you to write in multimedia format. So please learn all the skills. And I am also part of a website called telugurajyam.com. I am a consultant editor for this website. It's just 1.5 months old. So they have in Telugu and English. Why I want to bring this to our attention is, if you are interested to write, you are more than welcome, and you will be paid. So Kishle, I will give contacts to Kishle, then you can contact him. And if you want to start to write, if you want to contribute regularly, if you want to be a columnist, anything. So you have a platform. So with this, I think I should not talk more than this. I would prefer to take questions from you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Now the floor is yours, please. Yeah.
Good morning, sir. My name is Srishti Trehan.
Sorry, could you repeat your name?
Srishti Trehan.
Srishti.
Srishti Trehan. So my question for you was, in your presentation you talked about news not being being unlike business, but with the concept of paid news being, prevalent today. So how can you say, how can you put it as, that news is not like business anymore in today's world? Like, people are creating news so that they can earn more and more money. That's how the concept of paid news has come into being.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. So it's a good question. So that's one of the issues that is bothering Indian journalism now. So, for example, sorry to take the name, the Times of India started to publish many news items, which are paid news items, but they have not revealed it. Yeah. So if you ask me, because I'm associated with 2 websites, if someone gives me a news item and someone pays me, I will make it very clear whether it is an advertorial or a commercial or a sponsored news item. So, but in the case of paid news, you have to make it clear. You have to inform the audience. Otherwise, you will lose your reputation. You will lose the trust. So, in my opinion, the established news establishments in India or anywhere in the world, they make it very clear whether that news item is paid or unpaid. So instead of saying paid news, they will say advertorial, commercial, sponsored, one of these things. Is it clear?
Hello, sir. My name is Anushka and I'm from the first batch of
Sorry. The first thing I would like to request is, please speak clearly, confidently, at least let me remember your name.
So my name is Anushka and I'm from the first batch of JSTC. So my question to you is, sir, as future journalists, how do we find that story of the night which would make to every news channel in the morning?
Sorry, how can you make?
How do we find that story of the night that would make to the every news channel in the morning?
Okay, so we are living in a time, people you don't have to target the news channels till morning because it is on the go all the time. Even if you work for a news channel, they have their presence online. They have their presence on social media. It has to go immediately. So to answer your question, the news item of that evening will start going immediately. Those who watch television, they may watch it in the morning, but those who follow that news channel through other social media platforms, they may do it immediately or during the course of their time. Is it clear?
Oh, maybe I think what she's trying to ask is that how do you get the big story? How is it your story going to be the lead story for
Okay.
How do you get that big story?
I think how can anyone get a big story? That depends upon your skill and caliber, your imagination, your perseverance. And when you have the sources, when you think about the larger interest of the people, when you think of the issues and subjects, that will matter to the people. That's a constant endeavor. There is no magic formula, how can you get a big story? But you can start to think, you can prepare for it. Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Sir, my name is Deetha Ghosh.
Thank you, Ms. Ghosh. Please sit.
Okay, so basically you were talking about how citizen journalists and citizen journalism is prevalent now. I just wanted to ask, is that an ideal way of journalism, you think, where everybody has the right to speak and showcase, like you said, because there's platforms, and I'm not saying you can deny it or you can get rid of it, but do you think that's the ideal way how journalism was planned out, or should have been carried out where everybody gets to speak and then in the end you're basically denying facts, and again, that it becomes prevalent to a point where everybody gets to speak. So is that ideal?
Okay, I really get angry and annoyed about all those idiots and writing all the time on all the platforms, because they are trying to take away our jobs. That's my concern. So in the case of citizen journalism, we have to distinguish from them. So how can we do that? So we are trying to learn the skill, the craft, that they will not have it. So we can't stop the citizen journalism. We can't stop people from writing, non-journalists. They will continue to do that. But we have to distinguish ourselves. So how are you going to do that? That's what you are here to learn. And you have the best people in the industry, So please make the best use of it. Does it help? So we are going to come across more competitors. So for example, why I say this, if I want to know what is happening in the world, I do not have to buy a newspaper. I do not have to watch a news channel. If I am on Twitter or on Facebook or on Instagram, I'm getting what I want. So in this age, how can even the news establishments can survive? Thankfully, you are in India, because India is one of those very few countries where the circulation of newspapers is rising. And we also have magazines, we also have radio stations, we have television channels, and we also have websites. It's amazing. That's why India is the best place now to practice journalism. If you are a print journalist elsewhere in the world, you are out of job. Okay, next one. Please ask me whatever you want to ask. Yes, ma'am.
My question to you is, in this presentation you were talking about how people are now moving towards social media and they post stuff on Facebook and Instagram. So what you were just talking about how in India print journalism is still rising, but I feel that still people prefer or go to social media instead of print journalism. So I just wanted to know your views about if people or future of journalism is social media, or are they moving towards it?
Okay, in India it is going to be a mix of everything. So I would say you still have a dedicated audience for newspapers, and that is partly because the literacy rate is rising. So India is soon going to be 100% literacy country. So you have dedicated audience for newspapers, and coming back to social media, and the audience for social media is also rising. So I would advise you to have the skill to present news to all these formats. Like if you have a news item, how can you put it on social media? How can you broadcast it on television channel or on YouTube? Or how can you write it? Does it answer your question? Please let me know. So you want to say, you want me to Does it answer?
You want to reframe your question?
No, it's fine.
Sure.
Respond?
Is your question that how can we reach out to social media?
No, I just basically wanted to ask if social media is taking place of journalism or sort of like.
It has taken place.
It has?
It has.
In India too?
In India too. But other mediums also have the space. Like ask yourself among yourselves, is there anyone who is not on Facebook or Twitter or on Instagram or not watching YouTube? Is there anyone? Except if you have the privilege to keep away. But
I just want to comment, but there is a lot of population of rural India which is not on social media as well, which get their news through radio or television. So we are still on the...
okay, so that's why I said, India is the fantastic country where you have the space for every medium. So if you want to be a social media journalist like Twitter or anything, you still have the space. At the same time, there is space for radio stations. There's space for newspapers. While in many other countries, people have almost stopped buying newspapers. That's why India is a lovely country right now to practice journalism.
I have a question. The two websites that you run. So how do you do fact checking? I mean, do you have artificial intelligence built in, or various ways that people do meta fact checking? So how is it that you are doing fact checks there?
It's really, I think, it's really hard. Number one, I fact check. I rely my news items on sources. I talk to someone, and I get my information. So how can I cross-check it? So I try to speak to someone if it is a political story. If I'm talking to a right winger, I will also try to talk to the left winger. In that way, I balance the story.
So, for example, you made an open offer of writing.
Oh, yeah.
Rewrite, and how I'm going to cross-check that whether my piece is,
Okay, so let's say this website, kovuuri.com, we have some writers, who write. Now and then, the problem is, I don't want to go into deeper aspects of alternative facts and all. I will stick to common sense facts. Like one writer wrote a story about, talking about an MP saying that, Minister Kavita has said this, but the fact is, she is not a minister, she is just an MP. So, please get your basic facts correct. If you can't get the basic facts correct, people will lose the interest to read your story or pay attention to you. I would say the basic facts. So the larger aspect which will come, you can always cross-check it.
Excuse me. One of the issues which comes up, I think, one of the sources you mentioned for verifiable facts is government resources.
Yeah.
And while that is of course true, we all who've been in the profession, we know that government resources are, the data which is coming straight out of the government is very often cherry-picked, is selectively given out. You have to wait through a very lengthy process of a right to information system, where even then sometimes you don't get it. What do you do when there are facts that are being reserved and cannot be cross-checked further?
So that's a challenge every journalist faces in the newsroom. Number one, you are under immense pressure to publish or broadcast the story immediately. So whatever the information you get from a government source, so the only way to cross-check it is by talking to people or by talking to the political parties in the opposition, number one, or talk to someone who is running a think tank, or talk to academician. So by talking to these people, I think you can balance the story. Yes, sir.
So, thanks so much for your presentation. I would just like to refer to the source of that phrase, alternative facts, Kellyanne Conway,
Yeah.
the White House spokesperson. And the fact that despite she being the butt of many jokes and having stirred up a lot of mirth and having attracted a lot of criticism for trying to tamper with fact, the base, Donald Trump's base, attracted a much larger crowd than Obama, right?
Yes.
So they are remaining rock solid in their commitment, in their conviction that he's a more popular president. So this is about the presenting fact itself, because one person says one thing, another person says another. They either agree to disagree, or they say let's submit it to another tribunal or arbitration and decide who's right. Or or they say no, I'll stick to mine and you stick to yours. So basically, the whole kind of civil compact by which you agree that even if you disagree, we'll respect each other's opinions is collapsing. So this is what the crisis of alternative facts is. In the US, they're now saying there's a collapse of civility, and that one side does not listen to the other. And the weaponization of social media in that context, the WhatsApp, Twitter, they are becoming weapons of this kind of information warfare. So is there a duty for journalism students and for journalists to learn or to relearn what civility means? What respect for other opinions means. Is there a need to learn civic responsibility before you click and forward a WhatsApp message? You spend 5 minutes to check if it is right or wrong, right? And is there a role for a very old concept, and since you live in continental Europe, where the news function has not been as badly corrupted as in, say, US or UK, is there a role for public service media in this context? There's some source where you can go to. You can be sure that they don't get the news first. They don't get you titillating news, but you can be sure that it's reliable news.
Thank you, Mr. Muralidharan. The need for journalists to give reliable information is the most important thing right now in India. Because everything is circulating or going on all the social media platforms, let's say from WhatsApp to Twitter and everywhere. So the answer to this, restraint. Before you pass it on to someone, before you publish, before you broadcast, ask yourself whether it is correct or not. So by exercising restraint, you can ensure whether the news item or the piece of information which you want to share or publish is correct or not. That's the only thing I can think of. So in the case of the US, which is replicating in India as well, which is sad. So, number one, how can you dispute the facts given by an authority? In the case of alternative facts phrase which has originated in the White House, who the president's team was telling everyone 500,000 people have attended. How can you, even if they say, even if it is not a fact, how can you cross-check it? That's the question. How can you verify? How can you measure? How can you quantify?
They had satellite pictures.
Satellite, but if they can count, then it is possible. Even that they have manipulated the images. So all those things arise, and it's a very interesting thing, because the same thing is going to happen in India. So in the case of Mr. Muralidharan's observation, what I can say is, restraint, please cross-check, so that you can ensure the information which you are trying to pass it on to someone or to some other platform is newsworthy and trustworthy. Because to build a trust, to build a reputation is the most important thing. And that is one of the defining characters or pillars of you being a journalist. Otherwise, why should you believe it? If someone is not a journalist, he or she is not going to pay attention. But if he or she is a journalist, people will pay attention, because people will think that you are giving that information that is correct, reliable, and trustworthy. Yes. Oh, sorry, Usha.
I've known Ganpati for more than 10 years, maybe 15, 20 didn't pay much attention. And then I've heard from a lot of people that it was a great film, which I missed in theaters. Luckily, I watched Newton, and again, unluckily, I missed Ghazi Attack, though it was again made by a Telugu filmmaker. So, would you want to guide the upcoming generation of film critics? I'm sure one or two of them would be definitely going into that, even from our students, to be very responsible writers, because we work on feature films also have very, very huge budgets. And we work for 115 days in, like the most horrible weather conditions, and it's more or less like a war zone sometimes. And you just listen to some crap given by some famous journalist, so-called famous film journalist from Bollywood, who just write it up saying, oh, it's such a crappy film. So I don't agree, because we need good film critics also. And can you please throw some?
I don't know, it's really hard for me to say because I can understand what you're trying to say, Usha. You spend so much energy and money in making a film, and a film critic gives a rating of just 1 or not worthwhile to watch. It will be very disappointing. What Usha is trying to say is, be responsible and reasonable in writing film reviews. Is that what? So, how can we do that? Number one, someone has pointed out paid news. If it is a paid review, you will give 5 stars. If it is someone, and again, if you give it to a critic, so he or she may give a balanced review. So I really don't know. It's just really hard. But only if you ask me, I would advise a person writing a review for a movie to demonstrate empathy and sympathy for the movie makers. That's the only thing. Otherwise, I don't know. It's really hard. Yeah.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
As an officer on special duty with the Andhra Chief Minister, did you have to peddle alternative facts?
So it was really hard. So whether is my job to peddle alternative facts, because I was morally sensitive and I couldn't peddle alternative facts, but I tried to highlight the facts that are really the facts. I couldn't exaggerate. I didn't rely on alternative facts because I realized that you can't sustain or rely on giving alternative facts because the truth will always come out. If not today, tomorrow. And then you will make a fool of yourself. So being aware of that, I exercised restraint. I didn't peddle alternative facts, but I relied on facts. Anything else?
Yeah.
So my name is Bobya. I have one question for you. As you mentioned, you're learning 7th language, right? For example, even in native language, it's hard to update facts for the other people. For example, if you are in Sweden and there is a Swedish reporter and you. And if the Swedish reporter will go to the native people, obviously he'll get more facts compared to you. So how do you overcome that?
Oh, that's really the challenge. That makes me to learn that bloody language, which I don't want to learn. Otherwise, I don't get the information. So you have to learn the local language. So if I don't speak Swedish, so at least to a reasonable degree, I can't write a good news item or a report in the native language, but I should be equipped with a decent degree of proficiency in that language to get the basic information. Yeah, does it answer your question? Yes. What I want to say is, you have to know the language. For example, what's your mother tongue, miss? Telugu, very good. So if you are working in Delhi and if you are sent to to cover a political rally in Haryana, let's say, and if Sonia Gandhi speaks in Hindi, how are you going to cover that?
I have to learn.
That's it. There is no other way. If you don't know Hindi, then there will be someone else who is ready to do the job. So, my observation is, please learn the language, otherwise you won't have any chance. You have to learn Hindi in India and your regional language and your mother tongue. There is no shortcut. Because I am from a village in Andhra Pradesh, I studied in Madras and Hyderabad, so I picked up languages. And because I live in Sweden, I am also learning Swedish. And I'm learning it because I have no choice. As you said that, otherwise I won't get the information. Because when people are shy not to speak in in English, they will not talk to you. So unless you converse in their language, it's really, really important.
And again, anyone else?
Hello sir, I'm Rashi. So we spoke about trust and responsibility and how as journalists and future journalists we need to be responsible with what we write and what we produce, so that because at the end of the day we are kind of influencing a group of a number of people. So with this prevalence of fake news and paid news having the rounds in journalism all around the world, how do we trust the journalist? Like who do we look up to? If when already journalists are seen as the villain, on the outside, how is that motivating us as a profession?
Okay, so the very fact you being a journalist itself should motivate you, and you are obliged. You have an obligation. Like you have an obligation to look after your parents or a loved one. So in the same way, you have an obligation as a journalist to give the factual information. It's not mandatory, but it's your obligation. That's what I think, a sense of moral responsibility, a duty. Is there any force for me to love my country? I don't know. No one can force me to love my country. So, is there any duty for me to be a good journalist or to give information that is trustworthy, that is factual? Yes, I feel that sense of responsibility. That's the only thing I can think of. Whom do I look up to? So I can look up to the Constitution of India, the way it is framed and why we should protect it, safeguard it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Lovely.
Thank you.
Lovely morning. Lovely interaction. All the way to Sweden.